The future performance of any specific investment strategy, including the investments and/or investment strategies recommended and/or purchased by advisor, or product made reference to directly or indirectly will be profitable. Different types of investment involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment will either be suitable or profitable for a client's investment portfolio. No client or prospective client should assume that any information presented serves as the receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice from the advisor or any other investment professional.
Welcome to the Bullington Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullington. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullington.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Kind of hate to tell you this, but I forgot my laptop. And I'm trying to do all this on my phone. It's pretty hilarious. But anyway, still got a lot of good stuff to say. I have a subscription to Bloomberg. If you know what that is, if you've heard of them, you've probably heard of Michael Bloomberg before. It's named after him. It was his company. And they're one of the... They've got more data than just about anybody. They merged with a bunch of other companies or bought them out, actually. And so if you want any sort of financial data on almost anything, and you have one of those, it's going to take you a while to find it because, like I said, it covers everything. And knowing how to navigate that's a vocation. You should see how many people they have working there all around the world, in fact. If I call it 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody picks up. And so anyway, just to give you some background, I use that fairly frequently. Somebody calls in and wants to know about an individual investment, a stock or bonds, and I can look up what the Fed's last notes were to see what direction bonds might be headed. That can change on a dime, by the way. So any of this can change on a dime. That's one of the reasons they spend so much money gathering and collecting this data. But pretty interesting that they also have a magazine that comes out once a month, and it's huge. The amount of material in there is mind-boggling each and every month. So, yeah, I like using a lot of ETFs. I have some models that I built using the Bloomberg system, and the one I've got, the one I like the best, I should say, is it flies, both directions. When it's going up really fast. When it's going down pretty fast. So, but in the long run, returns tend to be pretty good with that. I also, I really like the fact that I have, as I've gotten older, I've been picking up fixed annuities. There are annuities out there that have rates that are substantially higher than CD rates are, which are pretty good right now. But the nice thing about them is that once you're in there, you don't have to worry about adjusting it anymore. It's guaranteed for the rest of your life. That income is guaranteed until you die. So where people get a little upset is if the interest rates start to go higher and they're higher than the rates that they locked in. But my point, and the reason I have so much of it, is that I'm happy with the return that I will get. If I don't take it, which I'm not, it compounds each year and it's tax deferred, so I don't have to pay taxes on interest. And they're highly competitive. They know where the CD rates are. They know what long-term interest rates have a tendency to be. And so they've been doing this for, well over 100 years, the companies that I use. And they'll give you a very competitive rate, and I'm just happy with that, knowing that I've got that. Worst case scenario is this is how much income I'm going to get from my annuities. And that's a good feeling. But again, a lot of people have a stroke when I start talking about that on the radio show. It's just some people they just can't stand them, and I'm like, well, you're either really, really, really well-to-do, where you wouldn't need any guarantees on any of the money that you have. You could get by with whatever they're paying on money markets. And by the way, if that goes back down to 0.75%, you'll probably be sorry. But it will be liquid, and you will have to pay taxes on all the interest. So I guess my point here is that you really have to take a look at your situation. I've never seen two people with the identical situation financially. I've never had two clients come in and be exactly the same. Heck, you should see how difficult it is dealing with married couples. They have different ideas, and money is a very touchy subject with a lot of them, which I think is kind of funny, especially when you've been together for a really long time. So. But that's part of the practice of being a financial advisor. You have to put your psychology hat on and your marriage counselor hat on and a bunch of other hats and just be ready. But the reality is, in the long run, things are, this is basically how the market's worked over the past 150 years or so. Okay. There have been times where the economy has slowed down quite a bit, especially if you go back 150 years. If you could just go back down, if you go back to the end of World War II, they've still cooled off quite a bit, but never to the extent that they had before that time period. Okay, because pre-1945, when World War II was over, you had the Depression, and it wasn't uncommon that there was a quote-unquote run on banks. That's where people would run to their bank and pull out all their money because there were rumors that the bank was going to go bust. And, there was no FDIC, no SIPC. So if the bank failed with your money, there went yours. And it was very, very, very hard to collect on that. And so the SIPC that's securities. FDIC is a really, really good thing. And the fact that you can put money in there and not have to worry about it. Today, a lot of your brokerage firms, the ones I use, they'll even have insured CDs. So you could have more than $250,000 in CDs, okay, because you didn't put them all with one bank. And that's a good thing. So I guess my point to this is when you're planning, you want to have as many options available as you can. And there are a lot of firms now who have access to CDs. I think with Fidelity, you can get CDs, as soon as they come off on the market, and they actually participate. And they've even created, in addition to another, in cooperation with a bunch of other firms, they've created a market where you can basically buy and shop for CDs if you want to. They don't pay as much as annuities do today. Right now, annuities are higher because they're fixed. They're not going to fluctuate. So they know approximately how much they can pay out. They know approximately how much they're taking in because that's the job of the insurance company. They know what they can pay. And so they can actually have higher margins than a lot of banks are going to have on that kind of stuff. And that's one of the reasons that you'll see higher interest rates on annuities than you will on CDs in most cases. So if that's attractive, like I said, I have enough in them that between the income, this is me. This is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make sure that I'm going to have enough income when I hit 67, full retirement age, and I don't get penalized for, still making money to take my Social Security. Well, I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to turn my annuities on and going to take the income from those, and I'm putting them all in my savings account. My checking account. And Fidelity's got a really good one of those too. It's a high yield checking account. It's really a brokerage account, and we're allowed to use different money market funds that they have in there, and the rates are super competitive. So that's where my cash is going to go, and then I'll just spend it as I need it. So I'm going to collect all that interest and keep it in the accounts, and then just spend it as I need to, take money out of it. And after all these years of doing this and helping people, the ones that choose that route are most often the happiest. They're happier that they chose that route rather than some other route, like trying to keep CDs at multiple different banks and shopping the banks and figuring out which one's going to pay an eighth of a point higher interest. That is a long run for a short slide, because the financial firms out there, like the ones I'm using, they're doing the same thing. By the way, Fidelity is the largest fixed income manager on the planet. Okay? So who do you think is going to get a better deal when they're buying that stuff? Because it's all about deal making. They go in and say, hey, we've got, I don't know, $100 million. We want to buy some CDs. How much do you have to sell, and what are the prices? And then they start negotiating. And when you come in with a huge amount of money, and it's not like, Fidelity's going anywhere real soon. And by the way, you're the one taking the risk because you lent the money and packaged the CD. So long story short, if you're looking at fixed income and getting good deals, give us a call. We spend a lot of time working on that, quite frankly. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about today is I haven't really mentioned this in a long time. If you want to talk about your situation, you can call us or you can email us. It's bill@bullingtoncapital.com, or just go to my website. It's bullingtoncapital.com. There's a contact us page there. We will try to get back to you as quickly as we can. Normally, I'll call you within 48 hours. It really depends. We had some major computer issues a few months ago, and they were not updating our data. And I didn't find, how would you know? The way I found out was all of a sudden it comes through one day, and there were a whole bunch of inquiries that weren't there the day before. And I'm going, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So I am really, I think there's been, the last couple of years, a lot of really strange things have been happening that really have not made the mainstream news. And very, very, very frustrating, because everybody thinks that everything's fine, it's all working like it's supposed to. No, I mean, you can still get it done. It just was taking 3 or 4 times the effort and 3 or 4 times the amount of time. So, and it feels like that has, for the most part, gone away. There's still some certain things that would give you a problem. And it's an issue when you're going to buy. Let's say somebody calls in and, okay, I don't even want the CDs. I don't want treasuries. There's a corporate bond out there that I think I would like to have because I really like the company. Maybe it's Google. I saw, it was a few months ago. They had some short-term debt coming due and was very attractively priced. I mean, in other words, it was paying a little bit more than CDs or bonds. And I'm pretty sure Google's probably not going away in the next 6 months. So, I mean, they could. And that's the risk you take for just a little bit, a tiny bit of interest more than you would get going to a bank or a CD. That's why our bank or treasuries. That's why banks and treasuries are so popular with the public, because could they go belly up? I guess the United States could say, we're just not going to pay that. Isn't that what Trump said he was going to do once? Yeah, just don't pay him. And because he's used to that. How many times has that dude filed Chapter 11? It's multiple. So when he ran that idea past, I'm like, we could do that actually. And I guess from a financial standpoint, probably makes a lot of sense. But we'll talk about why you might not want to do that when we come back from these commercial messages. This is Bill Bullington right here on 1420. I'll be right back.
Does life hit you so hard that you've been knocked down? Have you gone too far to find? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for?
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to reach out to me and talk about your own situation, investing, maybe a little retirement planning, those are the areas that we kind of concentrate on. And by the way, I've always said you're never too early to start planning for retirement. And you know what? I really believe this. This is the age that you should start teaching kids when to start planning for retirement. It's when they're 12. When they're 12 years old, they know enough of the math that you need to be able to do it, and you need to show them. And my poor kids, I was killing them with that stuff the whole time, and only one of them listened to me anyway. But they can't say that I didn't try. And a lot of people don't try just because they don't know. And there's some rules of thumb that make this a lot easier, a lot quicker. When I get back to the office on Monday, we're going to schedule a seminar. I haven't done one since COVID, actually. And I'm going to do another one, and we'll talk about this stuff because it's not nearly as difficult as the magazines. And, I have an unbelievable amount of detailed information from sources all over the world. And I deal with the biggest broker-dealers in the country, in the world, for that matter. And they've got all their people and staff and research, and it's nice. Once you get your arms around all this stuff, and that takes a long time because, excuse me, I keep hiccuping, but that's what I get for going to Starbucks before I get here. Starbucks was one of those companies, by the way, we talked about it when it came public. My Lord, I should have bought a lot more shares of that. Although it has helped the funds that I'm in because I know that all of them own it. So, and that's another thing. Stocks are extremely volatile, and it's good to know about them. It's good to get information, be able to ballpark what a company should sell for. That once you get that down, it makes investing a lot easier. Or you could do like most people. Most people just look at the past performance and say, yeah, that's all I need. And that's going to jump up and bite you. I mean, you could try to drive your car in reverse by looking at the rearview mirror, but I would not recommend doing that on 71 or 77. Bad idea. First of all, you're going to get pulled over and get a ticket, and they'll probably take, if you do it more than once, probably take your license away. But it's not a good idea. But when it comes to the stock market, that's what people do. They look at the past and say, okay, well, that's just going to repeat itself exactly like it did in the past, right? No, it's not. It's going to change, and probably going to change quite a bit. If you were in stocks and you did something like that, you'd probably still make more money than you would by putting it in a money market account. It would probably, at this stage of the game, would probably outperform that over long time periods. But when you're doing that, like a lot of people say, yeah, just put it in the S&P 500. Really? Okay. Because the S&P 500 had a 10-year period where the return was negative. Okay. And that's if you didn't take any money out of it. So if you can go for 10 years and be happy with being down 50% 2 times in a 10-year time period, and still having a negative return at the end of the 10 years, then by all means, just use the S&P. Most people can't do that. Most people cannot afford to have a 10-year negative time period. And if you were taking money out of it, even 4 or 5%, you'd have been out of money. So it's incredibly important. That's one of the reasons when I started doing annuities. That's why. Because the annuity doesn't matter what happens in the stock market. The rate that you're going to get is not going to change. You're going to get that rate until you pass away. And if you want to name your spouse on there as a joint beneficiary, a joint annuitant, the income will go until both of you pass away. So there are lots and lots of bells and whistles, lots of things that you need to pay attention to when you're setting that up. You want to set it up right because there are no do-overs with stuff like that. When you're going in and the insurance company's making promises out 30 or 40 years from now, they're going to stick to it. So you have to make sure that you know exactly what you want to do and that it's capable of doing that. And then you need to know how to fill out the forms the right way, and so that it actually happens. And I'm laughing about that, but it's really not funny. I hear about mistakes being done on the applications all the time. So, and it's confusing because there's a lot of stuff on the internet. There are a lot of people out there selling it. It is very complicated. It's kind of like, hey, you can look up a car manual and fix your car too, if you want to. And the car is probably more complicated than an annuity is, but in a lot of cases, not so much. It's pretty hard. I'm surprised that I would have thought that it would have gotten easier over the years because I've been doing this for a very long time, and it's actually just grown more complicated. I was thinking about that with the stock market. Stock market's gotten a little less complicated. That's when I say a little, I mean very little. There used to be well over 10,000 stocks that were publicly traded on a major exchange. I think now it's just a little over 3,000. And that's excluding the micro caps. Nobody really wants to invest in micro caps unless you're in your 20s, or maybe in your early 40s. But micro caps are stocks that are just so small they're not even included in a fund or an index. So roughly you've got right around 3,000. So that Russell 3000, if you wanted to own a piece of all 3,000 stocks, that's what you would buy. It is market cap weighted again, which just means that they put more money in the stocks that are larger than they do in the ones that are smaller. And I would explain the math behind it, but I don't want to lose all the listeners that I have. So if you want to call me and talk about it, that's okay. You can do that. And matter of fact, I would recommend that you do that. My office number is actually 330-664-0700. 330-664-0700. So if you hear anything on this show that you'd like more information on, or you want help to build an investment plan for your retirement, feel free to give us a call. The planning is free. We're a flat fee firm. So there's a schedule. It doesn't go higher than the highest one for anybody. Okay, and typically the average fee is right below 1%. Okay, it just depends on how much you have in assets, and how much work it's going to be. Quite frankly, because at this stage of my career, I can tell who's going to be a handful and who's not. So if you're going to be a handful, it's going to cost you. Really, there's nothing else I can do about that. And maybe at some point in time, and I'll tell you, I will tell you, look, you're a handful. You've got a lot of requests. You got a lot of stuff that you want us to do. And the reason you're not doing it yourself is because it's hard. And so the harder ones, you're going to end up paying a little bit more. But bottom line is, and you're not stuck there either, by the way. I want to make sure I bring that out. There's no penalties. Some of the annuities have penalties. But the managed accounts, there's no penalty if you wanted to shut the account down and transfer it out or take it over yourself. So I've always been adamant, I want to be as fair and upfront and talk about, you will never be surprised by a fee that comes up unless you forget. That's kind of easy, especially as you get older. But very straightforward pricing. We do better when you do better. When you're not doing well, neither are we. Our income is tied directly to the investments, which are generally tied to financial markets. So if the financial markets are doing well, we're all doing well. If they're doing poorly, we're all doing poorly. So I think I feel that a little more than most of my clients, because when you're managing a fairly significant amount of money, you see your monthly income fluctuating all over the place. So just give a little insight into what it's like to be a financial advisor. But anyway, I have a Bloomberg, and There's no stock that's traded on a public exchange in the United States that I can't get detailed information on. Not that it really helps all that much. I mean, it could, but you'd have to have the patience of Job to be able to put together a handful of stocks as a portfolio and have the patience to ride that out. It is just, they fluctuate a lot. They've always fluctuated a lot, but today it's a lot faster. You know, the peaks and the troughs might not be, they're probably close to where they've been the entire time I've been in this industry. They seem to be a little smaller. In other words, instead of the average stock having a 50% annual range, the way it's been, for years, that might not be true anymore because there are a lot of stocks that don't have the 50% range, and they're bigger, so they take up a bigger portion of the average when you're counting. So bottom line is they still fluctuate a lot. I mean, it's a lot. It is fast. And I don't know if it's faster now than it used to be because it was pretty fast. I remember when I first got in the business, if bad news came out on one of the financial shows or Wall Street Journal or Barron's, those stocks would be down 40 or 50% lickety split. So I don't miss that. I definitely don't miss that. And when you're trying to build, for retirement, you want to have stocks, but you also want to have some fixed income, whether it's treasury bonds, whether they're going to put an annuity on there. The reason I started doing annuities, somebody called and said, "Hey, why are you talking about annuities so much now? You never used to talk about it." I was like, yeah, well, there was a period there where it didn't really behoove you to use them. The interest rates weren't high enough to really get me excited about it. But now, that's changed. They've come up quite a bit. If you're going to get, like me, I really want to know when I'm 67, which is 5 more years from now, I'm going to take full Social Security, so I won't get penalized unless they change the rules between now and then, and won't get penalized to take it. And I'm going to put those, I'll make a monthly contribution into annuities for my grandkids, and I think that's a great idea. It won't be, I won't have to pay taxes on the income that it's making. It goes around probate, so they may not be 18. I have to put special instructions on that. But anyway, I also should probably let you know that you can call in here today, 216-901-0945. And if you have a question, I just saw where somebody's calling in and hopefully they'll be asking a question because my voice is about to go out. That's what happens when I talk just nonstop for a half an hour straight. But anyway, okay, got a call here, and looks like it's Jason. Is this? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah, hey, I had a question for you. I know you were talking about annuities, and I don't know a whole lot about them, but I understand they're an insurance product, and they're basically backed by the health of the insurance company. So I know you want to look at that
right
rating on the insurance company. But here's my question. You were mentioning about the lost decade. I assume where you mentioned about the S&P being down over 10 years twice and everything. I'm assuming you're talking about from 2000 to 2010.
Yes.
I looked at the Bloomberg aggregate bond index during that period of time.
Right.
And and just quickly doing math without the decimals on the returns, I was looking at about 6.8% per year if you averaged it over that period of time you would get just in bonds. Assuming the S&P wasn't doing good during that time, which I don't believe it was, how would an annuity actually get you more of a return than what that bond index would have gotten you? Isn't the annuity investing in stocks and bonds as same as
some of them do? No, they're not. Not all of them. That would be a variable annuity. And so you've got a variable, and then you got fixed, and you have immediate, and then you have lifetime. There's a bunch that you will not learn everything there is to know about annuities in a day.
I understand, but just in general, what is the fixed annuity? What kind of assets are they investing in if they're not investing in stocks and bonds?
Oh, they are actually investing in bonds, and they'll actually do direct investments with companies where they're taking superiority on the credit scale over the other uh, people that are lending them money. And so that's one of the reasons that they tend to be a little safer, because insurance companies will go in and negotiate those deals, and it's like, hey, if you guys are getting in trouble, then you're paying us first. And
Will they pay ahead of somebody who owns a corporate bond? Then, if you're in that case, so if Microsoft got in trouble, let's say I own a direct bond. I gave Microsoft money, and they're paying the interest and whatever their rate, their investment grade. Is this somehow and they got in trouble? Would this annuity be able to get paid before me?
Well, it depends on the deal that they struck when they bought the bonds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what you're paying them for, is to, first of all, they shouldn't be getting in stuff like that to begin with. Secondly, if they do, they want to have there's a hierarchy of who gets paid first, and they want to be really high up on that list. And oftentimes they are. You rarely hear of an annuity or life insurance company, which is basically an annuity company, that goes belly up. I mean, it is not a common occurrence.
Right.
And so they're just, and that's because they're safer. They know what they can do, and they just don't overstep those bounds. Now, they did in I can't remember. There was one time period where a couple of insurance companies actually went belly up, and I'll have to look it up here, but I have only got about 30 seconds before I got to go to commercial. Hey, if you want to hang around, you can ask more questions after the commercial break, or I can let you go now.
Yeah, that was good, Bill. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I'll let you go. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks. You too. It's Bill Bullington right here on 1420. Stay tuned, because I'll be right back.
From where I'm standing, Lord, it's so hard for me to see.
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to reach out to me, you've got a question, or you'd like to put a plan together for your retirement, you can call me at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or you can go to Bullington Capital, fill out the form there, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. And very interesting, all this stuff. It's mind-boggling how things have continued to change since the day I got licensed. Things changed pretty dramatically over time, if you give it enough time. And it's just mind-boggling, and all this stuff goes on. What's really kind of funny for me, anyway, is I remember I did a lot of calling, a lot of cold calling back in those days, and I tracked everything that we had to do, because I had a background in direct marketing, and so you need your statistics if you're going to be successful. Well, I guess you could be successful without it. You just kept calling and just didn't count. But I wanted to know approximately how many things I had to do, how many calls I had to make, how many people I had to talk to. I always would lead with bonds back in those days, and that's one of the things that just reminded me of this morning, with the CDs and whatnot. Anyway, that was a long process. It was very difficult, and now most of the thinking stuff that had to be done in those days, nobody really trusted anything except for fixed or guaranteed products. You'd had some sophisticated people, that if they had a lot of money, they were raised around money. If they liked it, they would probably be subscribing to Barron's, and if you read that for 2-3 years, you get a really good background on investing overall, because they hit all those topics. I think Bloomberg was it was around during that time period, but it wasn't nearly as popular as it is now. And like I said, anything that you wanted to know, that you want to know about a company, about the economy, doesn't matter what it is. How many cars did they sell last year versus this year? How many houses? How many people are applying for permits? How many banks are merging? I mean, whatever you can think of, it's in there. Let's see. I just have to dig it out. But so, why am I doing all that? Well, because I feel like it really helps. It helps when I'm speaking with my clients. It helps them to know if they're listening to my show, I'm still putting the time in. It's a little addictive, actually. When you're so used to doing it, you're always going to do it. I mean, if you do this for 3 or 4 years in a row, you're done. You're there. By done, I mean you're sold. And what you will find is that people are always looking for the one. Okay, and here's something that could be interesting for some of the listeners out here on demographics. So, the fastest growing segment of the population, 60 and over. That's the fastest growing segment of the population. A lot of them have been investing for a while. Most people don't invest a lot until they get up into their 40s, which I think we've done a big disservice to our school system because they teach you the math that you need to know, basically compounding, when you're 12 years old, but they don't teach you how to apply it to finance, which you've got, at 12 years old, you're either in the 6th or 7th grade most of the time. You got 6 years there, and you could have kids coming out of school completely capable of doing a budget, balancing your checking account, which they have classes for, but you should be able to take a Fed's report, have some idea of what they're talking about with interest rates. You should have to know approximately what the returns on financial markets have been in the past. Not that they're going to know, not that they're going to repeat themselves exactly the same way in the future, because they won't. Okay, but they should be able to know, because I see these kids. These kids are smarter than I was at their age. They have access to so many more tools. Those tools are available out there online, and they should be using them, and somebody should be teaching them how to use them, because that is useful. It's very useful to know that the president of the Fed is probably the most powerful man on earth, because he controls the purse strings for the most powerful economy on earth. Quite frankly, he's got more powers than the president does. If he wanted to raise rates tomorrow, that big crashing sound would be that you're hearing all over the country would be the stock market. If he didn't want to do that, it'd be really easy to pump up the banking system. He just drop the reserve requirement and drop the federal funds rate and start pumping out the money, so the banks are not going to sit on it. They're going to loan it, and that's easy too. You have to be careful with that. You've got to be careful with all this stuff. Actually, it's kind of like flying a plane. And in fact, the one analogy I like to use a lot is the economy is very similar to the weather across the country. And you got a 747 flight, and you're going to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast. There's probably most of the time it's pretty smooth sailing. It's pretty easy. Occasionally, a storm pops up. And occasionally, a storm gets so bad and so big that they have to reroute the flights. They make adjustments. And what I don't understand is you never hear about anybody talking about making adjustments when things change. Now, the way I do it is I have these funds, and the funds are making adjustments all the time. Some of them more than others. And so you don't see that. You only see the price of the fund. And I'm glad that you don't see that, because a lot of people would get scared. They would get scared right out of their investments if they could see what was actually happening. And the ones that generally have the higher turnover, it's something that was taught to my generation, that you really didn't want to have a lot of turnover. It was buy and hold. And buy and hold could be really dangerous. I saw it just devastate a ton of people right when they were getting ready to retire. That was a bad idea. Buy and hold, just buy stocks. Two of the worst ideas that I've ever heard. just buy a small handful of stocks and hang on to them. Yeah, that's what Warren Buffett did. Yeah, somebody's going to win the lottery too. and that's what's going to, you just don't want to, it's bad. And I was so happy, when the first ETFs came out. When I left the brokerage business, I was with a big bank, and they had bought us out, and I was like, you guys are kind of restrictive. You're actually very restrictive. And so I left to start this on my own so that I could, and I think there were only 4 ETFs. 4. Okay. That's how old I am. There were 4 ETFs. And now there are more ETFs than there are stocks on the stock exchanges. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty funny because, there's a lot of overlap out there. And it's hard not to have a lot of overlap. But I'd rather have it that way because you don't have to invest in all of them. The Russell 1000 it's the top 1,000 stocks. The S&P 500 is the top 500. But see, the S&P 500's got like 40% of the assets in the top 30 stocks. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable, just because that's one of the reasons it does so well, by the way. But that swings both ways. It's a momentum fund, and if you really want a momentum fund, just take the top 40 stocks over the last 6 months out of that index and rebalance it once a month. So, in other words, every month you're going to go in and look: are these stocks all still the top 40? Are they outperforming the other stocks in the index? And if they're not, they're gone, and you replace it with the stock that took its place. So that is a really good strategy. I love that strategy. It is tough because it is really volatile. So you just have to get used to it over time. Probably better off to start with a smaller account there. Watch it for a while. Get comfortable with it before you put more money into it. But and it does incredibly well. And now you've got these firms that are out there selling these programs, and we're actually able to use them now. And they'll actually go into your portfolio and weight the stocks. By weight, I mean they'll invest in them on a market cap basis. So let's say they do the top 500 stocks, the S&P 500, or top 1,000, Russell 1,000. And what would be NVIDIA is number 10 in that group. So NVIDIA is they're going to take a look, as far as size goes, as how many shares times the share price is that stock. What's the capitalization? That's what you call capitalization. Number of shares times the share price. And where does that rank in those top 50 stocks? Is it third, fourth, fifth? What percentage of that top 50 is it? And let's say it's third place, and it makes up 3.5% of the index. Okay. So that's what they'll buy. They'll buy 3.5% in NVIDIA. It'll be a third stock that they buy. And they just keep going through that until they get to the 50, and then they stop. So I know you probably don't try to write this down, by the way, especially if you're driving. Just call me. I'll go through it. And I'll show you that there are a couple of funds out there I really like a lot that are doing things a little bit differently. These are not that old. We're not allowed to make recommendations on a radio show. Sorry about that. So, but you can call me, and there's no charge. I'm basically same way I am right now all the time. So I'm not going to try to high pressure you or anything. I mean, it's hard enough. I don't need that. I don't need that mess. It's hard enough when you're trying to do the right things to get them done, and it's spooky. I mean, I'm not spooked by any of it at all anymore, and I stopped being spooked. I don't know, probably 10 years after I started. But when I say anything can happen and probably will, people always think I'm being a smart aleck or something. And but if you hang around long enough, you'll come to find out what that means, and because you will go through periods. I'll never forget. I think I was responsible in large part for the high yield bonds to do so well in 2009. after the market had been down gigantically. We were at this meeting with Fidelity, and there's only me, Gary, from my firm, and two other guys from another two different firms, because it snowed, rained, snowed and rained, snowed and rained again, and it was so slick outside that cars were sliding off the roads everywhere, and so we trudged out there and made it anyway. There were only four of us in an audience that was supposed to have about 1,000 people in it. And so there were more people from Fidelity than there were us in the audience. So the guy goes, "Hey, do you guys just want to go out for dinner or something?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm sitting in right across the table from the guy who's the head of research for all of Fidelity. Okay. And so one of the guys next to me goes, "Hey, what do you think about high yield bonds?" Well, I had already been buying them. And he turns to the bond guy and lets him answer the question. He goes, "Well, we think there's another about 15% of downside, so we're going to wait until that happens, and then we're going to pick them up, start to invest." And I go, "Excuse me, do you know what the current yield on a high-yield bond index is?" And he looks at his boss, and his boss doesn't know, and he doesn't know. They're like, "No." I go, "That's 15%. So if you make the investment now, you'll pick up that 15% of downside in income over the next 12 months, and that's guaranteed." And he looks at his boss. His boss goes, "Is that true?" And these guys are from Fidelity. So anyway, we go back, and the very next day, they put this bulletin out to all the 16,000 RIA firms on their platform at that point in time. Now's the time to buy high-yield bonds. That happened to be the best performing. When you tell the biggest bond buyer in the world, you give them a tip and they act on it, I felt like, oh man, I hope I don't go to jail for this. But anyway, that was a pretty good one. So listen, this is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you want to talk with me, just go to my website. It's Bullington Capital, or 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. And lots of good things going on. But yeah, give us a call, and have a good week, everybody. Good luck. Good investing.
You just caught another edition of the Bullington Capital Report, broadcasting every Saturday at 11 a.m. on AM 1420, The Answer. If you have a question and you'd like to speak to Bill personally, you can call him at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or online at bullingtoncapital.com. That's bullingtoncapital.com.
The preceding program has been paid for by Bullington Capital Management, LLC.